Hello fellow carers, welcome to my latest video, and this is on top 10 ways carers can be empowered. But before I go on to the ways that carers can be empowered in their role, I just want to give a quick little talk on what empowerment actually means. And to my view, empowerment could be a way of just letting someone feel that they are in control in their role and in their destiny in whatever they do. So that way they're not limited by external forces or those that are perhaps meant to represent them. In fact, we could say empowerment gives the person a way to even represent themselves and those who are of a similar role. So without ado, I'm going to go into the top 10 ways that I think unpaid carers can be empowered. Number one, I would say, would be identification. Obviously, I would say this because this is the first step. Someone can be recognized for what they do or what they're going through. And this would be the same, I would say, for unpaid carers. It means that you're basically not lost in the system and that you're recognized in order to get at least some means of support, and that you're recognized and identified that you do need assistance. This in turn can lead you to have some form of empowerment, so that way you can know your role. If someone's identifying you, then they know that, we can confirm that you are an unpaid carer. And from there on, you can know what your needs are, or they can at least tell you in some sense. And when I mean they, I could say hence the health and social care systems can assess what your needs are and tell you what you feel you need. Although, do take note, do let them know that you are in need of assistance in your role as an unpaid carer. The second way carers can be empowered actually links to the first way, which would obviously be the identification of carers. But the second would be access to support. Now, you can't really get access to support easily if you're not identified. Although this is not always the case. However, once you are identified, then you can be referred on to services that can help you as an unpaid carer. And you can begin to find out for yourself what is out there for yourself as an unpaid carer. Hence, you can get access to even more health support or help for the person that you're caring for. There's even ways, I suppose, that you can be included in the person's care plan, the persons that you're caring for, care plan. And this is again some way of I'd say I can't say control, but a way to be acknowledged that you can be included. This can lead on to other things in regards to support. It could lead to respite. It could lead to not only just being identified as a carer, but having yourself assessed for your carer needs. And in turn, obviously these things should be mandatory, to be honest, but it is a way of empowerment. So therefore, access to support is a way of empowerment for unpaid carers. The third one is actually fairly common in some sense, I would say. Not always recognized, but I'd say networking with other carers. And the reason why I say it's fairly common, because usually with carer centers, they usually have some form of carer groups. It doesn't have to just rely on carer groups, carer support groups. Carers can actually network themselves. Not to say that this is easily done, because for instance, how do you know there are other carers out there if you're not able to access a group? So it could start with a carers group, and then from then on, you can use those groups to network with other carers. So again, empowerment would be in this form that you're linking up to like-minded people. You're again not alone out there. It can lead to peer support, so you're supporting each other. You're in a shared role. You understand each other. You've been there, or you're being there in that caring role. Thus, you're learning from each other, strength in numbers, providing an advice and asking for advice. So number 3 in regards to empowerment would be networking with other carers. Number 4 is a really good example of empowerment, and it's used in, let's say, service user circles, patient circles. And this would be co-production in services. And if co-production, and usually I refer to like health and social care, or sometimes we could call involvement in mental health trusts or mental health services. Usually I would say when you're in a co-production element, you're taken more seriously. They want you to be involved in co-production, co-design, co-promotion in these services, because if someone's trying to develop services aimed at carers, you'd want carers to have more than just a say, and you're not treated as an afterthought once services are released. And it's not just co-production in designing services, it's actually coming together and say, look, what's missing. You can require services to be put in place for carers, and that way such services that have a co-production element in them more likely to work. So number 5 would be that not only are you identified and that you're known to be an unpaid carer, but you're actually now sought after for your views. And a good example of that is surveys. A lot of surveys are online these days. But I know many carers may think these surveys are boring, and I guess, sometimes it is boring answering surveys after surveys, but you know what? It can lead to changes, because if many carers are feeding into such surveys, and I'm saying huge numbers, that will feed back to, let's say, powers that be that may release funding for these services, or be pressured to do more carers assessments, things like that. It's so important carers take note of these surveys. And it could be health and social care surveys coming from carer charities like Carers Trust or Carers UK, or even surveys related to your caring role. If you care for someone with mental illness, it could be a survey from the College of Psychiatrists, or even health watch surveys. Your views would obviously be taken into account, and also things get audited so they can be compared to surveys of maybe last year to see what's changed. But I've always said to carers, yes, it might seem boring, but please do them, because it can show what is required out there, either in health services, on the inpatient wards, or out in the community. And thus that leads to empowerment. So number 6, when it comes to empowerment for carers, I'd say leading on projects. Now this is a very tricky one, because I'd say it's almost a catch sort of 22 situation. You're an unpaid carer, you don't know what's out there, and the next thing you know, you're trying to set an example. You're trying to lead on a project, perhaps in a health setting. But the problem is, if you don't know what's out there, how can you be expected to be confident enough to lead on a project in regards to, let's say, getting carers' views in regards to, let's say, changes in mental health systems. Of course, the carer leading on a project will need to be skilled. But if you lead on a project, even if it doesn't work, it can only really increase that confidence. You've tried, you get an idea of what to do, and most importantly of all, it sets an example to other unpaid carers that if a carer can lead on something, then it set an example to those who feel carers shouldn't be involved. But if a carer has led on a project, it says to the powers that be that carers should be involved, because they can do these things, and thus more carers become empowered. But I must emphasize that it's important that if someone's going to lead on a project, that they need to be supported in training. Number 7, when it comes to empowerment for unpaid carers, would be able to speak at events. Now again, you would need that confidence to speak in front of a crowd, It's not always easy either, because telling your story, I suppose, can be emotional. The caring role is a very emotional role in itself. You're caring for a loved one who is obviously quite unwell. But it's obviously the biggest way and the most impactful way to tell your story. It doesn't have to be telling a story. It can be many things that carers could be speaking about. But usually like at care events, care conferences, sorry, yeah, mental health trust conferences online. I often say to carers, yes, if you tell a story to a bigger crowd, it helps in awareness of the carer's role and basic carer struggling, if that was picked up from the carer's story. And when you're telling your story as a carer, it reaches even more carers and gives also that added recognition for those carers as well as yourself. And thus this leads to empowerment. Number 8, in regards to empowerment, is actually learning from others who have a vested interest in yourself. And the first thing that comes to mind when learning from others is watching what carer activists are out there, and there are a huge number of them. Quite a few are online. Check on Twitter, check on YouTube, read carer blogs, check who are the movers and shakers at different health trusts, different social care settings. They are out there, and learn from them. Also, go up on those websites, Carers UK website, Carers Trust website, Mobilise. Check out their sites. Check out NHS England sites when it comes to what they have to say about carers, who's added to a blog in regards to carers. So read the news, carer news and campaigns from those organisations. And it's not just that, you've got books that are out there regarding the carer's journey. Learn from others who have been through that. They've got a lot to say, and it can help you, it can empower you. The last two, I think the next one's very tricky, but the one after that is critical. And I wouldn't say, probably one of the most easiest things to do, but we'll start with the hardest one. Number 9, when it comes to empowerment, holding to account. Absolutely tricky, absolutely tough, and it's definitely needed more than ever today due to the coronavirus situation. You're caring for a loved one who can't always get access to services, because those services, health and social care services, are under immense strain, under immense pressure. Now, it's vital carers get on board and try and work out who does what in regards to health services, what are they doing and why are they doing it. Hence, holding to account is simple in the way in where you're asking questions again and again, saying, is this working? You're not seeking for confrontation. That's not the way to do it. But you do want to be acknowledged, to say if these services are designed for your loved one, if they're designed for yourself, you must hold that person to account on it. You must ask for that engagement. And it's one of the best ways to be empowered. Even if you ask the wrong question or make a fool of yourself, you need to know, because these services are affecting you and your loved one or the caree. The last thing on empowerment, last but certainly not least, probably one of the most important actually, would be education. Now, the things that I mentioned from 1 to 9, being co-production, learning from others, speaking at events, it's not going to work if you don't have the education, if you don't understand what is needed and why you have to do those things. Education goes hand in hand with empowerment. It's basically about knowledge, how you can help it to serve yourself and others. Hence, not always to be led, but to also lead. And education is just going through reading materials, what can help unpaid carers as yourself in regards to being empowered. So those are my top 10 things in regards to empowerment for carers. There's a whole raft of them. I could have done a top 50 things, but I think these are one of the most important ones. I'd like to say thanks for watching my video, and I hope to see you again soon, and good luck in your caring journey.